Alright, I'm back. And I'm going to be continuing the series here where we talk about and discuss every spec in Mists of Pandaria. Now that's going to be a big feat, but today we're going to further the series by looking at Discipline Priest. There's going to be two guides, one for Discipline and Holy, so if you're looking for Holy, check it out. There should be one coming up if it's not out already. Maybe an annotation, look for that. But either way, this is Discipline, and we're going to be discussing how the Discipline Priest has changed, how it's going to handle a MoP, things like changes to talents, glyphs, stat and reforged priority, when to heal with what spells, and a comparison at the end of how Discipline Priest stacks up with all the other healers in the current model. Alright, so we're getting right into it. First thing we're going to discuss is how the class has changed, and it's going to be short, man, it really is, because there has not been a lot of changes to priests. The only big thing that we're going to see here is that a lot of spells have developed into niches or just kind of been removed and stuff. You'll notice that as you're switching between specs, some spells are only available to some specs. Like Mind Seer and Holy Nova has been pretty much removed entirely. So some of the spells that you used to have on your action bars for one reason or the other as a Discipline Priest likely just aren't there anymore. And then the other big change is resistances are gone. Hopefully you know that. So Shadow Resist, the buff is no longer in the game. Obviously, we don't have to worry about that. Never really did. And then Power Word Fort has changed. It used to give like 560 stamina or something like that. And now it just gives a flat 10%. Okay, so this is going to be a very good buff. Always has been. But this is going to be an even better buff for the tank. Alright, so now we're going to talk about how Discipline Priest has changed in general. And we might as well just call this Spirit Shell. This is the change. This is everything that has to do with Discipline Priest. This is the biggest change that any spec has gotten, in my opinion. I'm just going to read it out for you here. Next 15 seconds, your heal, flash heal, greater heal, or prayer of healing no longer actually heal, but instead create an absorption shield that lasts 15 seconds. Now, that is huge. Okay, this is a 1 minute cooldown, an instant spell. It's basically just going to turn any of your heals into another absorb. Segueing into the reason that Discipline Priest is now going to be so vital to a raid is that the spec is now more predict healing than react healing. It used to be able to do a bit of both, but now with this spell, oh boy. Like if you know a tank is going to be getting crushed, what do you got to do? You got to get a bubble up on him, and you gotta pop Spirit Shell and get the freaking stacks up as much as you can. That's what you gotta do. It's gonna be crazy. You're gonna have to plan out your spells a lot more in advance. I think this is really gonna develop into, like a niche for priests. They're gonna be planning spells before the fight starts. They're gonna be planning out when they could regen. We now have a new ability called Power Word Solace. Okay, it's going to strike an enemy with power. It's basically Telluric Currents and Lightning Bolt from the Shaman. Some people are complaining the cast is a bit too long, but it's almost a 2-second cast. Either way, it's going to restore about 2% of your mana. So that's going to be how you regen mana on fights like that. Now, the other big change here, it's not really a huge change, but Atonement has included Penance into it. So Penance can be used on the target as well. So you basically now have 4 abilities that can do damage. For some reason, if you ever need to, you have plenty to choose from. That's for sure. You can regen mana with Solace, or you can do damage with any of these Smite, Holy Fire, or Penance. And you'll also be healing, as long as the Atonement thing is working properly. And then the final real big change is the mana pool. We've discussed this in the past, but boy, is this ever important. 300k mana flat. That is a big deal. Very, very big deal. When you're talking about how the priest and how stats are going to interact, really going to put a huge priority on spirit, but it's even going to be more poignant for the priest, the Discipline Priest, because it's going to make guaranteed absorbs, right? No 100% no overhealing at all, 100% efficiency. It's going to make that even more mana efficient, more important to have happen. Now, in terms of stats and priority, we talked about this already. Intellect is basically capped. You're not going to be getting mana from Intellect anymore, so the mana pool is never going to expand based on how much mana you have. So that's going to devalue Intellect a bit, but going to even value higher spirit. So you're going to have to balance that, although I don't think it's really going to be much of a balancing act. Spirit should be the number one secondary stat, and Intellect is a prime stat, so it's obviously going to be there always. Now, Mastery, from what I understand, is still going to be the best by a large margin. Okay, I don't actually play this class very often, but my sources are telling me that Mastery is just too strong. Always will be. It's going to increase the potency of your damage absorption spells by 24%. So this is Spirit Shell, every bubble you have, basically. So talked about how important Spirit Shell and Predictive Healing are going to be, henceforth Mastery. Now, Haste is less powerful than it has been. It was pretty good at the end of Dragon Soul when you were just basically overhealing everything anyway. Try to get a few more casts in. It benefits in the current model, but it's all prediction healing for discipline, so you don't really need to catch up. If you do, you're in trouble anyway, and Haste isn't going to help you. Like I said, you need to be ahead of the damage as a discipline priest. You can't catch up. It's really just not going to work. You're going to be very, very inefficient. And then apparently, I didn't know this, but I found out that crit doubles the shield. So if it crits, there's another shield, right? We know that. But so that is a huge deal, as we said, about predictive healing. So crit is going to be a pretty decent stat. It's pretty much almost as good as Haste from what I understand. This is a bit different from every other healer in the game, as crit is usually fucking terrible. Okay, there I said it. It's usually the worst stat for every healer. Has been since Wrath, I think. All of Kata, terrible. And, the Spirit Shell crits. Now that is what really carries it, right? If a Spirit Shell heal crits, oh boy, we got a fucking bubble. That's for damn sure. So that's a good thing to have. I'm going to go ahead and say, obviously, Int first, then Spirit. Spirit is a very, very important stat. You got to have Spirit on all your gear. Mastery as well. So I would make sure everything is reforged to either Spirit or Mastery. Crit and Haste are probably the lower of the two stats, although I'm liking Crit a bit more than Haste. I don't know if it's actually better. I don't, like I said in the last video if you watched it, I don't really sit here and do math, and I definitely don't play Discipline Priest as my main. All this information is from a guildie, and some forums. If you have math that supports one of these stats being better, please let me know. But as for now, I'm saying Spirit, then Mastery, then Crit, and then Haste. Haste and Crit are very, very even, though, I think. We're talking talents now. Just going to blow through this first here. This is a really, really situational one. I can't see how this would work or really help in any way. Perhaps in a fight, maybe like Gunship or Heroic Blackhorn, where there's an ad. I don't know if these things would even work on the ad. I'd probably rock the Tendrils, though, if I was on that fight. Otherwise, it's just cosmetic. 30, pretty important tier. This is our movement tier. Okay, this is a really important part, as there are a few options, but I'm going to stick with Body and Soul for now. Just a general spec is going to have this. Angelic Feathers is going to be really neat, too. You're going to be able to put feathers on the ground. When players run through them, they're going to be able to move a lot faster. Now, I don't really know why you would choose this. I can't really think of a situation why you would choose this over Body and Soul. But if you have multiple priests in the raid, what they can do is they could pretty much chain them all together for somebody to run halfway across the map, I'd say. Really, really, really cool idea from Blizzard. I'm hoping there's some fights where we need to use it. But as for now, I'm sticking with good old Body and Soul. Obviously going to be casting some shields. Or also Leap of Faith now. So going to increase the movement speed like that. Now this is the important one. Okay, bunker down. This is the important one. 45-point talents. I'm going to start with Power Word Solace, as it's the one I've currently selected. And for that reason alone, to gain mana. 2% of your mana every time you cast this, right? But it's also a 2-second cast. Now, the math equals out that you need to get about 4 casts per minute for this to be better than the other option in this tree, okay? Now, 4 casts a minute. That's 4 globals that you can heal or do any damage or do any effective healing. You're just going to be doing damage, okay? If you can do that, then it's effective. If you could average out to 4 a minute, then you win. Okay, keep that in mind. Now, that's more globals, like I said, so you have to make that choice. If not, if you can't fit in 4 globals, then you got to go Mindbender. Okay, Mindbender is unreal good. It's going to restore a lot of mana, and it's a 1 minute cooldown, so it's going to restore about as much as 4 casts. That's why we're saying that. So it's about 8% of your mana, maybe 10%. It got to be at least 4 casts of Solace to equal Mindbender every minute. And then also you got to take into effect that Haste now affects the pet. So the more the pet attacks, the more mana it's going to get you, right? Well, that values Haste more, right? That's going to flop Haste going to be back up the tree. So people may be wondering why I'm giving Haste as much credit as I am. Well, it's still a viable spec, especially if you're going with this. If you're going with this pet, Haste is going to be the way to go. But if there's a fight like maybe Heroic Magma, where you pretty much just stand there and don't heal anything for a minute, then you can just spam Solace for 15 globals and regen 100% of your mana, basically. You know what I mean? So that's going to be an important change. Now, the final one in that tree, From Darkness Comes Light, is pretty neat. Not a huge fan of it. 15% chance when you any of those spells, next flash heal is going to be instant and have no mana. Kind of like the Holy Paladin thing, but one way or the other, it's just 2 RNG to use on a every fight basis. There might be some situations where you need it, but as for now, I'm going to just avoid that. I'm not really a big fan of spells costing no mana as your way that you save mana. I'd prefer to regen mana, as obviously we're going to be using mana. Now, the 61 is pretty cool, too. It's not as crazy as the 45 one, but what's going to happen here is you're going to have to pick this one. Spectral Guise. Anyway, it's pretty awesome fucking talent. It's going to basically just take you out of the fight for 6 seconds. Okay, it's going to make like a shadow form guy of you, and it's going to be all kinds of shit. Let's see what happens when I do it. Oh, look at that. There's like... Oh, that looks terrible. But anyway, Spectral Guise is going to be awesome. The way I'm thinking this is going to be mega used is Heroic Nefarian. You basically just don't take one of those blasts. Okay, so this is basically your bubble, your oh shit button. You're like, what the hell do I do now button. This is a big deal because there's a lot of fights out there, maybe not in MoP, but there has been in the past where there's lots and lots of damage, and reducing it like this, just taking it off the map for you, is huge. Okay, now the other options in there are decent. The Bulwark, anytime a damaging attack below 30%, you get an absorption shield. That's fine, maybe for PvP. But one way or the other, I don't see how anybody doing PvE rating would pick anything other than this. 75-point talent, also interesting. We got a few options, but I'm sticking with good old Power Infusion. It's a go-to. But you'll also have a few... this one's interesting. Twist of Fate. After damaging or healing a target below 20%, you deal 15% extra damage and healing for 10 seconds. So perhaps there's a fight like... can't really... I mean, there's a few fights out there like this, but where the boss is like always at below 20% or something like that. Like constantly, for a large portion of the fight, it's below 20%. This might be a good one to pick up, because whenever you damage it with Power Word Solace, Smite, or Inner Fire, Holy Fire, stuff like that, you're going to be doing extra healing. Now, think about this. Say this fight is always 20%, and every once in a while he just crushes the tank, just absolutely dominates the tank. Okay, so you you get this buff up in between with Smite or something like that. And then, when it comes time for that, you'll have the extra 15% healing, and you'll use Spirit Shell and make an extra 15% bubble. And hey, if you crit, like I said you should be getting crit, then maybe you'll be a freaking 70% bubble. And the tank will be like, oh, thanks, Priest. And I'll be like, yeah, that's great. So anyway, that's that. 75, awesome tier. 90 tier, really cool spells, but there's not a real lot of interest going on between them. Not really that interested in all of them, although they look amazing, okay? It's unfortunate, but Cascade is probably the one I'm going to stick with. This is for pretty much spread out situations. This is going to bounce maximum in a 25-man raid. It's going to bounce up to 3 times, and it's never going to hit the same target twice. So this is going to be a really, really good AoE heal. It's instant, and it's a smart heal. Low mana if it hits all the targets well, and they're all healed up. A good fight for... or a good choice for perhaps Ultraxian or Chimeron, where everybody's bouncing around at health. This is just giant. It's a giant spell for Priest. Really, really good spell for anything that's just a bit spread out and you got an AoE heal still. Now, Divine Star, we'll move over to that one. There you go. Divine Star is going to basically be your heal for when everybody's directly in front of you and all stacked up like Ultraxian. It's going to do more healing. It's going to be a bit more efficient. It's going to do it all right off the bat, and then when it comes back, it's going to do it a second time. That's going to be your stack up heal. You're not going to be able to use this otherwise. It goes right in front of you and comes right back. So that's, I mean, what do you do with that otherwise? And then Halo, now this is an interesting one. Looks awesome, first of all. I got to give credit to whoever designed this spell. Looks amazing. Okay, but it's going to create a ring of holy energy that's just going to friggin' like expand out of you. Like if you dropped a rock in a pond. You ever do that? You ever drop a rock? Okay, anyway, yeah, so, but the problem is, this is why this spell is tricky for discipline and holy. Okay, it's basically going to do more healing the farther away it hits, but it only goes up to 30 yards. Now, the problem here is the animation goes on forever. The animation doesn't stop until it like leaves the room, basically. So you don't really know when it's very, very hard to tell how to maximize the spell. This is just too much maximization for a healer. It really is. If you want to maximize the spell, go for it, but I am not going to waste my time with it. You got to find yourself in the middle of groups that are all 30, 25, 30 yards away to maximize the heal on this. If everyone's stacked up, it's not going to heal for shit. It's going to be terrible. So it could be a good heal. Maybe a fight where there's like small groups around the room and you're kind of in the center. But I just can't see how. Like I can't think of a way that this would be easily maximized. So I'm just going to avoid it. Although it looks awesome. Alright, so now we're on the glyphs. And boy, what is happening with these glyphs? This is just. I mean, I don't even know what to say about any of these glyphs. There's nothing really that's mandatory. Nothing very good in here at all. The only one that I would say is really awesome is Fade ability also reduces damage taken by 10%. So if you need to pop a CD, you can pop Fade. Can't really see why you would use Fade any other time, so you might as well have it up for that. Other options here are Pain Suppression and Guardian Spirit to be cast while stunned. If there's a fight that perhaps stuns you, that might be a good option. Not a lot going on here. Fear Ward, duration and cooldown, 60 seconds. Maybe if you need to fear, ward fear, I don't know. Inner Fire, that's PvP. Inner Focus, this one's interesting. You can cast this. You become immune to silence, interrupts, or just spell effects. So maybe there's a fight like that, but that's probably PvP. 6% movement speed from the Inner Fire. That one's pretty good. There's a few ones in here that increase your ability to move and cast. I like that because that's a really important part of healing. So this will be a good one if you're moving. Get a 6% extra speed, so move a lot faster. Leap of Faith is also going to clear movement impairing effects, probably PvP. Levitate, PvP. Nothing really. So this one's cool though. Penance, I like Penance, as we said. Movement stuff. It's going to make Penance cost 20% more, but you're going to be able to cast it while moving. So you won't want this in on baseline, obviously, but if there's a fight like perhaps Atramedes where you're constantly moving, or you can cast Penance still. So that's really cool. I've always liked casting while moving abilities, so this makes it happen. 20, don't pick this. Okay, do not. No, that's the opposite of why you would want to use Power Word Shield. This is interesting. Prayer Mending. First charge, going to heal for additional 60%. So it's going to have one fewer charge though after that. So maybe if it's just a tank fight, nobody else is taking damage and you need that extra heal. But to be honest with you, these are all really, really weird and situational talents. Reflective Shield, I kind of like this one. It's not really like an awesome one, but I mean, there aren't a lot of awesome choices here. 45% of the damage you absorb with Power Word Shield reflects back to the attacker. So, I mean, I don't think you're going to be able to spam Power Word Shield. We'll talk about that in a minute, but hell, if you need to beat an enrage timer and you're spamming it, you might as well put this on because there are not a lot of other options. Renew, yeah, good joke. Just don't even use that spell. That's about it. I mean, Smite's the Holy Fire thing. If you plan on using Holy Fire to get the extra 20% from Smite, you're going to do a lot of smiting, then yeah, go for it. But, geez, that's it. I'm not even going to use glyphs. Just not even going to use them. Just to protest. It's terrible. Okay, now the most important part. We're going to be talking about spell selection and quote-unquote rotation, although I don't like to call it that. So a fight where you're pretty much standstill AoE healing is still going to be the same. Not much has changed. It's just going to be Prayer of Healing when you can. Keep Palm, Prayer of Mending bouncing around, and Bubble who needs it. Okay, so Ultraxian really. Now there's an interesting talent. I don't know if this is really going to come into play here. I didn't really read it out in the talent section, but when you cast Penance, there's a chance that the next power word shield will both ignore and not cause weakened soul effect. So it's pretty good, I guess, if you can do a lot of penancing. But I mean, I don't. This might be a decent one for a fight where there's controlled damage and you need shields, but I don't think that's gonna really be used a lot. But it could be used in a fight like Chimeron where there's controlled damage. You know it's coming. You can get penance up, and when you proc this, you can throw shields out. Now that's pretty much that. You just got to keep that going. And whichever one you picked, whether it's Cascade or Divine Star or Halo, you'll use those. I would go with Cascade if it's not a stack up fight. Okay, now for single target, it's always going to be the same. You could penance and smite. You want to smite if you want to just, random heals. Penance if you need direct heals. You could also penance the boss, which should be interesting. And then flash or greater heal if you need actual healing and not just passive healing. Now the grace buff for the tank is going to be massively important, so you definitely want to you'll want to penance him really to keep that up, or use other heals to keep that up. And then use Spirit Shell to stack the shields when you need it for high damage single target. For movement, like I said, there's a lot of glyph choices. You can glyph the movement speed with the buff and then the penance on the movement. Very, very good. Cascade can also be used on the move. Any of these can. Divine Star not really going to work on the move though, because unless you're all running very, very close to each other, it's not going to hit anyone. But you'll want to just, while moving, you'll want to just shield when you can and spot heal with big heals in between moving. Now, in terms of CDs, you still basically have the same ones as Discipline. You'll have, what's it called here? It's called Inner Focus. It's going to reduce the mana cost of any of these spells and increase the critical chance. So it's going to be really good to pop with Spirit Shell if you want to get some easy, better chance at critting and better mana. And then you'll also, if you have it, Power Infusion, use at big healing times. But other than that, throw down the barrier when you can. Just going to, use it when possible. And basically just keep it in the fight when needed. People will need it. Trust me, there's always time to use it. You'll want to be using it. And then other than that, that's pretty much all you got. You got pain suppression still for the tank. But really, it's the same. Everything else in terms of healing and discipline stuff are the same as they've always been. Now to wrap this up, we're going to have a bit of a chat about how Discipline Priest stacks up with other healers. We talked about this in the Holy Pally one if you watched it. But basically, I mean, they're the same as they've always been, okay? They are, in my opinion, the most sought after piece of a raid, okay? I would prefer a good Discipline Priest over any other healer in the game. And that's for one very important reason, because they have maximum efficiency heals. And they're not even heals, they're freaking bubbles. How unreal is that? They're the only real class in the game that can do something like this, and they do it well. Spirit Shell is going to keep that happening. So they're not going to be amazing healers, but they're going to be ridiculous protectors. Alright, so the cooldowns are going to help them with that as always. We got the AoE bubble, we got real bubbles, we got, all kinds of stuff. We got Spirit Shell and Pain Suppression. If you use Spirit Shell and Pain Suppression, there is no way a tank's dying. Guarantee you. Thinking about Madness Heroic, where the tank's getting hit by that bleed at the end there. Every time the corruption hits him, just freaking put up Spirit Shell and Pain Suppression, and that tank won't even take damage. I personally guarantee it. So that is an insane thing. They are going to be shit-ass fucking healers if they have to actually heal, though. That's going to be the problem. Decent at best AoE, which you probably don't want to be if you're doing a serious AoE fight. I would go Holy. But if you don't have that option and you are Disciplined, not very good AoE. Probably the worst AoE healers at this time. Holy Pallies are in a state too, but fuck. I think Discipline is just... I mean, you should be Holy, basically, if you want to heal AoE stuff. But single target, boy, reduction is key, man. Anytime you can do 100% efficiency with a reduction spell, just maximum mana. So their survivability and utility make this unreal spec, man. If you haven't played Discipline in a while, hasn't really changed. So I encourage you to go check it out. As I said before, I don't really play this very often. It's definitely not my main. A good friend of mine, Vicario, hooked me up with all this information. He's in our guild. If interested in the guild, it's in the description. But one way or the other, I do not sit here and crunch numbers, as I said. I don't smash my face off and expel. I can't ever say that word right. Ever. Try like 4 times. Expel spreadsheet? That's not right at all. Okay? Anyway, you know what I'm talking about. I don't do that. If you have math, please give it to me. I would love to see it. I don't know everything about this spec, unfortunately, but I do know how to heal. Okay? So if you think this guy's an idiot, you might be right, but I do know how to heal, trust me. And I can pick up this class and do a good job of it. Just after a few minutes, that's all I need. Might not be able to explain it the best, but one way or the other, thank you for watching. If you have any real concerns, any math issues, let me know. I would love to hear them. Honestly, would love it. Any constructive criticism on what I chose, please do have a chat in the description, or have a chat in the comments. Any other people who are just gonna be like, oh, you're an idiot, I'm just not gonna acknowledge it, right? But thank you very much. Enjoy your days. Look forward. Holy Priest is done. It should be there. It will be shortly. If it's not up the minute you see this one live, it's going to be up soon. So check it out. Thanks for watching.